Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey folks, today we're going to take a look at Villains of the Multiverse. This is the newest expansion for the Sentinels of the Multiverse game. In fact, it is supposed to be the penultimate expansion. There's only going to be one more after this, the Aeon expansion. And as the name implies, with Villains of the Multiverse, this finally is the set where you and the other players can take control of the villains in the Sentinels of the Multiverse. Just kidding, it's not that at all, as the name implies. Instead, this is another expansion just to give you the team mechanism introduced in the Vengeance expansion. So in other words, there are several different villains. In fact, there's 10 villains in this set, but they can't be fought on their own. Instead, they fight as a team with up to 5 of them, equal to the number of heroes. And this can be mixed and matched together with the original Vengeance set, which introduced that mechanism. Now, Vengeance had a bunch of heroes in it as well. This one doesn't, although it does have some new environments. So let me go ahead and show you what's actually in this set. Then we're going to come back. I'll let you know what I think. The Villains expansion for Sentinels of the Multiverse reintroduces the villain team mechanism from the Vengeance expansion. Instead of one supremely powerful villain, you face an entire team of weaker villains, equal to the number of heroes. There are 10 new options in this set, and they can be mixed together with the original Vengeance villain team. Some of these villains are making their first appearance in the Sentinels universe. Or should I say, the Multiverse? Anywho, the game mechanism is the same as in Vengeance. Put one oversized villain card in between each player with their respective decks. Do all of their setup effects. The heroes have no special setup, but during the course of the game, the round works like this. One villain goes, then a hero, then a villain, then a hero, etc. These turns are the same as the base game. Start of turn effects, play a card, use a power if you're a hero, and then end of turn effects. After the last villain takes their turn, the environment goes, and then it's back to the first villain, and you repeat the process until either the heroes incapacitate every villain, or all the heroes are incapacitated, in which case you lose. Unlike the normal villains, these team villain cards work more like heroes in the sense that when incapacitated, they actually have an ability that continues on afterwards and helps out the remaining members of the team. Each new villain has a different strategy and different challenge levels from 1 to 3. Ambuscade returns from the base game. He now leads his own team called the Slaughterhouse and has lots of traps and poisons. When incapacitated, all of his remaining Slaughterhouse team members come into play and keep fighting. Biomancer is brand new and creates creepy clones of the heroes called Flesh Children, which is in itself incredibly creepy, healing them and himself every turn. His incapacitated ability increases all damage to the heroes by 1. The very, very well-named Bugbear villain, like seriously, that's the greatest name ever if anyone's asking me, is new to the game and a vicious melee combatant that deals a lot of damage, but also heals rapidly. He has a Blood Scent card that enables him to hunt a single character and lots of damage-dealing cards. His incapacitated ability heals his teammates each round. Citizens Anvil and Hammer were minions of Citizen Dawn, who was a villain from a previous set. Even though they have 2 supervillain cards, they work together as one supervillain between 2 of the heroes. They can't hurt each other, and they give each other bonuses. When incapacitated, they increase fire damage and heal the weakest villain. Greaser is just that. The nightmare spawn of one of those greaser punks from Fallout and a Na'vi from Avatar. He's new, and he has a contract out to kill the strongest hero, who instantly becomes his nemesis, and he targets them constantly. If you hurt his Pompadour, which is a card that he starts off with in play, he lashes out, but if you rip it off completely, he takes damage. His incapacitated ability lets the weakest villain resolve a card. La Capitane was in the Shattered Timeline set. She's really weird. She doesn't do a ton of damage, but she constantly makes the heroes discard cards from their hands or deck with her time abilities. She also prevents damage with her pet alien monkey. Her incapacitated ability destroys hero ongoings. Misinformation is also a returning villain with trendy new Botox treatment. Her cards bend reality and she has plenty of henchmen. Her incapacitated ability forces players to discard and draw, for some reason. The Operative has appeared in previous sets as well. She makes nasty melee and toxic attacks, sometimes at multiple targets, and her setup card, Yado Practitioner, deals damage when she kills someone. Her incapacitated ability limits the ability of heroes to heal. The Plague Rat is a returning villain as well. He's adept at dealing toxic damage, but he is controlled by his handlers from an evil corporation, which modify his abilities. His incapacitated side destroys an environment each turn. Finally, Sergeant Steel is new and has a whole team of special operatives with him with abilities he can activate similar to powers by heroes. His incapacitated side gives the other villains constant projectile damage each round. There's also 4 new environments in this set which don't have to be used with the villain team mechanism, but they can be mixed together with any of the other environments from the previous sets. You have the Temple of Zulong, which has ninjas, poison, and a dragon, because of course it does. Magmaria is full of water monsters. Psych, it's magma. Madam Something or Others has a bunch of weird traps that make the heroes hurt themselves, and attractions that get worse when more of them are out. The Court of Blood is basically Ravenloft. The evil vampire queen and her evil servants try to murder everyone. That's basically it. Now, let's get to my final thoughts. Oh boy, this is a tough one for me. Now, first off, if you're new to the channel, I want to state unequivocally I love Sentinels of the Multiverse. It's a top 20 game for me, and it always has been since I got into modern board gaming. And I really eat up the expansions. I have them all. In fact, the last expansion, which was, I think, the Wrath of the Cosmos one, was fantastic. It introduced one of my new favorite heroes. And there's nothing objectively bad in this expansion. For me, the problem is disappointment of the type of content that was put in this expansion, and also really expectations that just weren't met. Now, I don't do a ton of research on games and expansions that I know I'm going to purchase for review purposes no matter what. And I already know that I love Sentinels of the Multiverse. I'm going to get every expansion. I get even all the tiny expansions. So I didn't look into Villains of the Multiverse that much. I didn't pre-order it. I bought it at retail. But I saw it. I saw that it was a big box expansion. This is their definition of a big box. And that it was called Villains of the Multiverse. Well, Marvel Legendary did a set called Legendary Villains, where you actually play as the villains. You have the equivalent of the hero cards that you mix together to make your villain deck instead, or ally deck. So I'm like, oh, that's going to be fantastic. So I get the game, and it's not that. In fact, not only can you not play as the villains, as heroes, there's not even any heroes in the box. It is just villains. And not just villains, they're team villains, not even standalone ones. There's a lot of problems here. First off, I think one of the problems with the game as a whole, not a huge problem, but a problem, is that there's not enough heroes, not enough decks for the players to play with, but I don't want to say too many, but way more villains than they actually need. Actually, Legendary had the opposite problem, where there was too many heroes to play as and not enough masterminds and villain groups. With all the expansions for that, that's kind of been leveled out. But still, for Sentinels of the Multiverse, the best part about it is playing as the heroes. That's what people want, to try out these new decks. And this expansion has not a single one. So that in and of itself is frustrating. But okay, you want to do a villain set, you don't get to play as the villains, there's no heroes. Okay, maybe some new interesting villains would come out. And that is the case. I like the Bugbear, of course, not just because of the name. It's also a very interesting villain. I like La Capitan's new deck and what she can do. And the Greaser is even interesting in kind of comical way. But it's a team mechanism again. They brought back the team mechanism from Vengeance. Which, first off, I'm just going to ask an open question to any other fans of Sentinels of the Multiverse that are watching this, and I'd like an honest answer. Were you really clamoring for that mechanism to come back? I liked the idea of the villain team that was introduced in Vengeance, but as I said in my review of that, which you can watch, it exacerbates the problems of Sentinels of the Multiverse by tenfold. The main two problems being Sentinels already takes a little bit too long, and it's a little bit too fiddly. With the team mechanism for the villains, it's way too long and way too fiddly. Now you're dealing with twice the amount of decks to have to work with on top of the environment deck. And they brought it back. And even though it says it expands on that concept, it's still the same concept, still the same rules. Now you just have more variety of stuff, which I guess if you love that, that's great. But if you don't, like me, it's pretty disappointing. If anything, I wanted more normal villains, and I don't really want that much, not the team mechanism. I just don't know. I don't think this was that popular. I saw other reviews after the fact that did not like it either, so I don't know who exactly wanted this. Now, there are environments in this set, and that's great, but even then, I still wanted heroes. Environments are just kind of there to add a degree of variability so that it's a little more difficult to math out the perfect way to take out a certain villain with a certain group of heroes. Environments just throw a wrench into that, and it makes it a little more difficult to math out the game. So these are cool, but again, it wouldn't be the primary draw for me. And this is a big box expansion. Why even bother? Why even make it a big box expansion like this? So again, there's nothing objectively bad here, and some of the stuff is interesting, especially with the locations. But I don't understand. I don't understand the marketing plan for this game at this point. Maybe it's petering out for them. Maybe that's the reason why they're going to end it with the next one, supposedly. But they didn't have to. If they were following the marketing plan of Legendary, if they actually did a big base game where you could take control of the villains, because like any good comic book, the villains in Sentinels of the Multiverse were every bit as interesting, if not more so, than the heroes. If they actually had done a set where you could play as them, it would have been amazing. And I would be sitting here singing the praises of it. But instead, we get an expansion with no heroes, the primary draw of the game. The team mechanism villains coming back, which is one of the worst things they ever did to the game, in my opinion, and just some new environments. So, if that's your thing with the villain teams, this is a must-buy, but this is one of the only expansions with vengeance for Sentinels of the Multiverse where I could say, get the other ones first, maybe get this. Definitely not a must-purchase. So that is Villains of the Multiverse, the newest expansion for Sentinels of the Multiverse.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.